With me is King, independent of Maine, who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Greta. How are you?
I'm very well. So Senator Warner, who went over to Langley's CIA, which I understand you were just over there yourself, says that after going over and looking at information, he has more questions. Do you have more questions after your trip to Langley today?
Well, I do have more questions, but I also have more answers. I was there for most of the afternoon. Marco Rubio and I were both there, and I think it's important that people realize that this is a bipartisan investigation, and it has nothing to do with party. We're just trying to get to the facts. Yeah, there are certainly questions to be answered, but you know, one of the factors here, which I think is really well established, is that the Russians did interfere in our election in 2016. They intended to do so. The orders came from the very top, and I think that's clearly established. The documents I saw today confirm what's already been released in a non-classified manner. So I think we're very far along on that aspect of it. The other piece, Greta, that hasn't gotten as much attention that I think is really important was that there were Russian attempts to get into state voting system, registration rolls, voting machines, things like that. All the indications are it didn't work, that they weren't successful, but they weren't doing it for fun. And what worries me is they were practicing, they were probing, they were looking for vulnerabilities, and I'm worried about the next couple of elections coming and what mischief they could be up to on that front, which would really be a catastrophe. Imagine this election if we had found out a couple of days later that voting tallies had been changed in one or the other of the states. It would have really been a blow to our democratic process.
All right, with some of the states so close, like Pennsylvania is one of them, it actually seems to me important whether we knew of the Russian meddling in our election, you know, when we knew it. Did we know it last fall, last summer, and what efforts were taken? Because, you know, that makes a difference to me. Or did we just learn recently? Did we just figure it out recently?
No, there was a report, and because it came out in sort of the middle of the campaign, it didn't get as much play, but October 7th, the intelligence community, the leaders of the intelligence community issued a report which said the Russians are trying to interfere with our elections. We know that they're trying to get into our state election systems. That was in October. And what we need to learn from that is how do we protect the state election system? Things like don't attach voting machines to the internet, always have paper backup for your ballots, and those kinds of things. But this is something we really need to be aware of. And of course, the good news is that they couldn't get in. The bad news is that our system is very decentralized, and that helped them, helped to keep us safe. But we've got to have the states really have their guard up.
All right. Wait, in the beginning, I think, am I correct, sir, you said that the Russians did interfere. So naturally, I'm focusing on whether, you know, the integrity of the election was compromised with those very close states. Can you say categorically, or can the CIA say categorically that they have had no impact on the states that were so, you know, laser close, for instance, like Pennsylvania?
I can say now that, you know, categorically is now, forever, and always, but there's no indication at this point that they had any effect on vote tallies or election results in that sense, in the sense of messing around with voting machines or registration rolls. But what bothers me is, what worries me is they tried, or at least they tried to figure out how they could do it. And so I'm worried about 18, 20, 22 in terms of the next series of elections.
All right, Senator, White House Republican or Democrat, and Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, have sent us a letter over to Justice, to actually the FBI. They want all the information of any possible wiretaps by the administration of President Trump, his campaign, or Trump Tower. What's your thought about this?
I think they're doing exactly the right thing. It doesn't surprise me. Those are two senators who work well together on a bipartisan basis. I think our committee, the Intelligence Committee, is going to be looking into the same subject. But, you know, one way to verify this is for the President of the United States, who's in charge of the entire executive branch, to pick up the phone and call the FBI and say, were there wiretaps at Trump Tower? That would be a short way to get the answers to these questions.
I've heard that, but then it occurred to me that when, first of all, I don't think he'd get an answer. I don't know if he get an answer in a criminal investigation. But when Reince Priebus tried to correct the record on a New York Times story that the FBI tipped him off was a story they used the term BS on, is that we in the media jumped him that they're trying to interfere with criminal investigations. So, I would actually, if the president said to me, should I call the FBI and see what's up, I'd say you better leave that one alone. Let the FBI do its job.
Well, and of course, if he called and the FBI said we can't discuss that, that would indicate that there was an investigation. But I think this is something we can look into. It's fairly easily verifiable whether the FBI was involved. And it may be that there was some investigation that didn't involve Mr. Trump himself, but involved servers somewhere in the organization. And I don't know about that. But I think it is something we should get to the bottom of. But I do feel that if the president's going to make a charge like that, he should put forward some evidence other than a story in a newspaper or a talk show host, not just say people are saying the president bugged me. I think he owes the American people some further explanation and evidence. But in any case, we'll get to the bottom of it here, I'm quite sure.
You know what the problem is? I mean, I trust everyone's earnest wanting to get to the bottom of it, but the problem is that certainly the Intelligence Committee, so much is done behind closed doors, and with the temperature in this country right now, I don't think people are going to be, we're going to be happy with things but done behind closed doors. Would not an independent commission perhaps be wiser, just because they're more likely to do it in open? I realize that you can see more of the classified stuff, but the American people right now, are the temperature's up pretty high in terms of being poisoned and biased.
Well, I completely agree with you, except there's no rule that says the Intelligence Committee has to work behind closed doors. We do have public hearings, and I think our first set of hearings should be open. I think we should have as much of our work as possible that doesn't compromise intelligence, the mechanics of how we gain the information should be public. I absolutely agree. The problem with an independent commission, and we may end up going there, is they'd have to start all over with clearances, who would be on it, how would they be appointed, does the president get an appointment, the two parties? It would be 6 or 8 months for them to get where we are now. And my view is we're going to do everything we can to get to the bottom of it, to get all the facts to be straightforward, to follow the facts where they lead. If that doesn't work, if I sense that this is turning into either a witch hunt or a whitewash, I'm out, and I'm going to say so publicly that the Intelligence Committee isn't working. I don't believe that's going to be the case. So far, bipartisan, lots of good, strong members on the committee, and I think we're going to be able to do the work the American people trust us to do as openly and not behind closed doors, as openly as absolutely possible, while not compromising national security.
Senator, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Greta. Glad to be